What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another WandaVision recap and review. But today we're doing something a little different. I have a guest here, my friend Jasmine. Instead of doing the recap part, we're going to focus more on the review part and just talk about spoiler things. So if you haven't seen the episode, go to Disney Plus, watch it first, and then come back here because there's going to be a lot of spoilers. Also, full disclosure, this is the second time we're doing this recording because there were some technical difficulties in the last time we did it. So hopefully that isn't happening in this time. If you're watching this now, then obviously it worked. Also, a few other things. The camera that I'm using for my webcam in the actual chat has this really janky autofocus, so hopefully that's not too distracting, but just so you know. Jasmine, we watched this episode 2 times together, but I watched it an additional time after, and I think you also did, so we both now watched it like 3 times, and we both agreed that this is probably the best episode they've had so far. And so general thoughts for me, I thought, like I said, it's the best one so far. Without the first 3 episodes, it wouldn't have been as good, I think. Like, this one had the payoff of all the weird stuff we've been seeing before this. And it was just a great culmination. It was great to see some of these characters from other movies come back to be in this series. Just a lot of cool moments. Do you have any general thoughts before we get into the spoilers?
Same thing as you. I mean, like you said, this was my favorite episode of the series so far. I really enjoyed, just being able to make connections with the first few episodes within this new one. I believe this was the fourth episode. And being able to see things like seeing Darcy, who we've all missed so much, watching on that little TV. And you're like, oh man, it was Darcy in the first episode at the end who was watching that screen. Just being able to make those connections. Like you said, it's an extremely well done payoff for watching the first three, which didn't really have that exact same Marvel feel as we're used to when we get to watch, the new movies and stuff. But it was definitely the first episode that definitely felt like a Marvel creation.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just get right into it then. The beginning of this episode is pretty crazy already because we see Monica and a bunch of other people returning from the snap. And when it was first happening, I didn't realize what it was at first. I was like, wait, why is she like all dusty looking? And then it hit me like, oh wait, it's the snap. Oh no. So you see her come back, but then you see all this other chaos in the hospital, all these other people coming back, which is something we've seen in Spider-Man Far From Home, but they took more of a comedic approach to it because it's like the kids describing it. But then when you look at the rest of the world, it's like kind of traumatic too because people are just popping back up in different situations. And you had made a joke about that, about like people in the hospital specifically, like if they came back and like during a surgery or something. So I thought that was an interesting angle.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, you're performing open heart surgery and all of a sudden someone who was getting open heart surgery, I think it was 5 years ago, just starts to come back and you're sitting there like, oh my goodness, what the heck? And is the guy who's being blipped back like still have, the open heart surgery stuff being open? Like you said, Spider-Man, I think, was Far From Home, took such a comedic approach, but I think that this approach was definitely more of like how traumatic and crazy that actually would have been. I think that a hospital is one of the last places I would want to be to come back or to be when other people are coming back.
Yeah, it'd be pretty crazy. And so also in that scene, we find out that Monica's mom died after she had disappeared, which was really sad. And so it was 2 years after she disappeared, but 3 years before she came back. So still after the 5-year time jump. And it is interesting to see that all the characters that they did snap away in Infinity War came back 5 years later, perfectly the same age, so they could continue on their new movies and their new shows, which I think was smart on Marvel, but I kind of figured it out like, oh, I see what you're doing now. Okay. Very, very good, Marvel.
Yes, very definitely a creative and intelligent way of going about how they're going to make future stuff.
For sure. And so the next big thing we see is Sword HQ, and we find out that Maria Rambeau was the one that helped create it, which is kind of like, it's not necessarily a part of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's kind of its own thing from what we see. Kind of like a space version of S.H.I.E.L.D. as far as we know. And apparently Monica is grounded, which gave me one question, and this is a question I had throughout this episode, is that Monica is supposed to become Photon later, but we don't know if she has her powers at this moment. But from the way they're talking, like she was talking to the acting director guy, it seemed like she might already have something because he was referencing her going up in space. She talked about how drones are usually supporting her, and they were talking a lot about her going in space, doing all this action stuff. So it made me think, okay, maybe she does have her powers already. But they didn't really specify that just yet. But it was an interesting conversation there.
And in that one particular scene, This doesn't have to do necessarily with Monica ending up becoming, superhero with her superpowers. But one thing I did like in that one particular scene was, I forget what that agent guy's name was, but when he was talking and he said, oh, there's lots of threats and stuff in space, and Monica came in to say, and allies.
True.
Definitely a little shout out to Captain Marvel, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, shout out to our Auntie Carol.
Hmm.
So that was cool too. And then from there, we see her go to Westview, which is apparently a real place in Jersey, right? And it turns out that everybody that was in that town just disappeared completely to the point where the people on the outside don't even remember them. So it's basically a missing town case. It was at first a missing persons case, but it's actually a missing town thing. And we see Jimmy Woo come back from Ant-Man and the Wasp, and he fixed his card trick. He finally got his card trick, which I didn't catch in the first watch or even the second. It wasn't until other people pointed it out. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, even in Endgame, there's a lot of callbacks that I feel like I missed, even though I've watched all the movies at least more than once. But still, some of these callbacks kind of slipped by me. But it was cool to see him back again, and his dynamic with both Monica and Darcy later on are really fun. And there's the beginning of that running joke where, like, someone asks him a question, like Monica asks him, "What do you think?" And then he goes on his own little tangent, but then they really mean, like, what's happening in this actual situation. I thought that's a funny joke they kept bringing up.
I feel like having Jimmy Woo in these episodes now, it just adds to like that authentic Marvel feeling. Like when you watch the movies, like we see him correcting his card trick, like you said, calling back to something that he was trying to work on in Ant-Man and the Wasp 2. And like seeing him being able to be like, oh wait, he finally did it, or like making those silly jokes like, oh haha, yeah, back to the serious stuff, that's what you're talking about, or
Mm.
not the serious thing. His character is definitely bringing back that awesome authentic Marvel feeling that I've definitely missed.
For sure. And then also we see two other confirmations in this scene, which were the drone being sent in, which turns into the red helicopter that Wanda finds. And then we see not Wanda, Monica getting sucked into the energy field, the illusion, whatever you want to call it. And that's how she ends up in there with Wanda and stuff. So a lot of this episode is just them kind of filling in some of the gaps of things we've seen already, which I thought was really fun. And I think that's why I enjoy this episode so much, because it, one, again, has that Marvel feel, and two, it answers a lot of questions that we had in the first three episodes, but then also raises a lot of more of these questions. And so now Darcy is back also in this episode, and she's helping Sword, the FBI, try and figure out what's going on with this whole situation. And she's the one that finds out that there's a TV signal coming out of the energy field, the illusion, whatever. And that's how, like you said, we see her watching it in the post-credit scene of the first episode, I believe. And so it's funny to see her start to get invested in the show as if it's a real show. And actually, throughout that scene, there's Jimmy and Darcy acting kind of like us, the audience, which I thought was really fun, very meta, that they're kind of asking the same questions we're asking, having similar reactions to what we're doing. But they also have this realization that all these people, well, not all of them, but most of the people in this town are missing people who have taken on the roles of these characters, which I thought was a really fun reveal. And I kind of guessed it once they mentioned the missing town part. It clicked for me in that second, like, oh, wait, what if these are all missing people? And so I thought that was a really cool reveal.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting, like you said, we find out that all the people who are in the town, like Mr. and Mrs. Hart, those are two people who are missing in real life. Something that I know that we even talked about before is, okay, well, we know, who Herb is in real life. We know who, I think his name was like Norm is in real life.
Mm.
But the only person we don't really know about their true identity, so to speak, is Agnes. And I know we have a couple different theories on who Agnes could potentially be.
True. Yeah, because a lot of people were saying it could be Agatha Harkness, who is like Wanda's mentor, magical mentor in the comics, which I think seems pretty likely, because there's also some scenes in like the previews of the original, like the original trailers of the show. There's like a Halloween episode, it looks like, where she's dressed as a witch, so I feel like that's kind of a hint. But then also this scene where they didn't know who she was, they couldn't identify her in the real world, so that also makes it more suspicious. Like, well, who is she, and which side is she on? Is she there to help Wanda? Is she there to keep her contained in this illusion? What is her role? And that's something that's going to be interesting to find out as we keep watching.
And you said in the comics, because I didn't really read too many comics focusing on Wanda growing up, but did you say that Agnes's character in the comics was like a mentor type person to her?
Yeah, so she was on Wanda's side more so. So I think that's probably the direction they're going in this. I don't think they're making her a villain. I think she is probably there to help her, because there are some moments where I do think she kind of hints at something. In like the first three episodes, I feel like there's been a lot of times where she does help Wanda and like gives her hints and like kind of tells her, oh, you should watch out for this person. Like, I do think she is there to help more so, but we still don't know why she is there, and if she's aware that these other people were basically kidnapped, or is she aware that, oh, this is a full illusion? We don't know just yet, but I do feel like she has more to it than they've let on to. That's the thing. Like, they're hinting at more for her, but they haven't really gotten into it just yet, but that's something we'll probably see in future episodes.
Okay, yeah, because I was thinking once you said that, like, well, I remember in the first episode she helped her out when she was when Wanda was going through like that crazy dinner party, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, I just had a random, I don't know, pot roast just lying around, something like that. So, and plus Agnes kind of sounds like the name you told me, Agatha Hart. Yeah.
It's like a shortening of the name, so I feel like it's probably where they're going with it, more than likely.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then there's some other reveals we see in this episode. Like, we see Jimmy using that radio, the microphone, to talk to Wanda through the radio, like we saw in episode 2. We see it's a guy, an agent, and I think it's Agent Franklin, in a hazmat suit, who tried to go under, like, in the sewers to try and get in, and he ended up becoming the beekeeper we saw in episode 2 also. So all these little reveals of things happening, but it is interesting that as he was going through the portal or through the force field, his suit changed, but also the rope that was kind of tethering him back turned to a jump rope. So it's like a trap almost, that whoever force is there didn't want him to come back or didn't want him to escape, which is very creepy. And it's also kind of something that Darcy talks about too, that there's somebody out there like controlling the broadcast, censoring it too. Like in previous episodes where we saw parts where Wanda may have rewound time and stuff, when they're watching the broadcast, it just looks like something's missing, like it gets kind of chopped up or things get cut out. So that's interesting. It makes me think that there is somebody kind of influencing what's happening. Like, it's not 100% Wanda, if that makes sense.
I know something I'm wondering about is, when we see that little drone go in and Wanda picks it up, it was when the sitcom was still in black and white, but the drone itself was still, it changed its appearance to match like the decade and the time, but it was still, I believe, in like a blue and red color, like it would be in actual colorful television. Whereas when we see, the hazmat suit turning into the beekeeper outfit, the whole thing, like, it turns into the beekeeper outfit, but it also turns black and white. So questions that I'm wondering now is, well, why did the drone specifically stay that color? Is that like, is there some meaning behind that, or like what's going on?
Yeah, it could be some kind of glitch in the system, that whatever trap is there, it, for some reason, didn't work fully on that helicopter, but it worked on everything else. It's possible.
Maybe. I do also want to give a shout out to my favorite scene in the entire episode when Darcy is saying, oh, I can't believe Wanda and Vision are having kids.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want me? And then Jimmy Woo was like, oh, yeah. I've thought about it. A little Jimmy Woo running around, a little FBI badge, and she's holding a bag of chips like,
and he's like, oh, yeah, you meant the chips. Yeah, right. Yeah, sure, I'll have some. Yeah. Again, like, that joke came back again from the beginning of the episode, right? And I like that joke. And I think Randall Park is really great with comedy. And so he played it off. He played it off really well, along with Kat Dennings. Like, the two of them together worked really well in this episode.
I'm really, really big fan of both Kat Dennings and Randall Park. Seeing them both in this just makes me so excited to see them in more episodes.
For sure. And then possibly more movies. I'm sure they're not done after this. There's probably going to be more for them. Mm-hmm. All right, and the last big thing I want to talk about is when Wanda finally sent Monica out of the simulation illusion, whatever you want to call it. Because from my point of view, and I've talked to a few people about this, it seemed like for a second Wanda wasn't fully in control, like something in her switched when she did that, because she, again, was very serious after Monica mentioned Ultron, because she shouldn't know about that if she's in this illusion. But then also, she, like, seemed very angry and, like very scary almost, like she was not the hero we know. And so she, like, shoots her out with her powers, but it seemed like right after that, she kind of goes like, like she's kind of confused and like, wait, what did I just do? So, in my opinion, I feel like there is somebody sort of influencing her, but it's not 100%. Like, I can't say it's fully the person controlling her, and I can't fully say it's her just going crazy, because some people are thinking maybe she's just already just going crazy. And then at the end, Monica says it's all Wanda, but I'm still not convinced it's 100% Wanda. I feel like there is something controlling her. What did you think about that?
I definitely think there's some sort of external force outside of Wanda taking control. My question more so is there someone or something controlling Wanda? Or is it, a mix of maybe like Wanda is reaching out to something outside of her to, say like, I want to forget everything that's just happened. I just want to focus on what my life could have been if my boo thing was still here. Because I don't know if they were ever technically married or not.
I
Can't
don't think they
remember.
were.
Yeah, but it's like you said, is she being controlled by something? Did she like ask for someone to help her create this world? Does she even know what's going on? We don't know.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, I do feel like her trauma does play a big role in it because again, we see zombie vision, which caught everybody off guard. With like the
Yes.
giant hole in his head is great, and I noticed it as he first walked back into the room. I saw like, wait a minute, he doesn't look like he's in color yet, even though everything else is. And then when they zoomed in, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's zombie vision. But that makes me think again. It's more like this whole reality is like her tapping into her trauma, like or trying to work through it maybe in some way. And if it is someone else controlling her, maybe they saw that and thought, okay, maybe we can use that, and like gave her the push to kind of go insane from that stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
nudged her in that direction, and then she just took over from there. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that would make sense, but then what would be the goal of that? What are they trying to do using her powers? That's the question. I mean, some people think maybe there's something to do with the babies. Maybe it has something to do with the Mind Stone, which both Vision and Wanda got their powers from. Like, there's a lot of options, but I do think there's a bigger plan happening here with all this stuff that may not fully be Wanda.
Mm-hmm. I was also thinking potentially maybe they wanted something specific from that town that, Westview that they're taking over. Are
Mm-hmm.
they trying to hide something in Westview? Or, is there, something that about that town that made them wanted to take that part over specifically? We don't know.
We don't know. And that's the thing, I like the mystery of it. I mean, I've heard some spoilery theories that certain villains could be involved. And some people have said Marvel confirmed, but I haven't found that anywhere. So we're still kind of up in the air about what is actually going on. But based on how certain things are, like, for example, Civil War, it was set up to be these heroes just fighting each other, but then it turned out Zemo was behind it all. So I feel like the same thing could be happening here, where it looks like the heroes are all that's happening. Like, all that's happening is the heroes, but in reality, there's somebody evil working behind the scenes to cause all this to happen. So, again, it's still a little early to figure out which way it's really leaning, but based on what I've seen so far, I would say it's more so her being controlled.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But I guess, we'll just have to wait and find out. And this is probably the most excited I've been to see another episode of WandaVision.
Yeah, because like it was more of a slow burn the first 3 episodes, and then again, there's this big payoff here. So now, if you weren't feeling the show before, I think this is the episode that really, really grab you. Like, the third one gave you a little bit of a taste of what's to come, but this one really is like, oh, okay, now I see what's going on. I'm really invested now. So I think if you're someone watching it week by week and you weren't kind of feeling it the first 2 or 3 episodes, then definitely give it until episode 4, because that's where I think you really are like, okay, this is Marvel. This is what I'm used to. But they are still doing a lot of crazy stuff too. So I think we are in for a big surprise. And they were hinting that the finale was going to be something really big that's going to change the MCU entirely. So we'll have to see what that is, if that's going to be mutants or something else. We don't know yet, but it's still a fun ride, and I am looking forward, like you said, to seeing what's happening in the next episode. So that is it. I think we both enjoyed the episode a lot. Highly recommend it if you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen it, you shouldn't be watching this video anyway. But thank you all for watching. Let me know what you think of this format. Should I do this more? Should I invite more guests? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Is it your favorite so far? If you have some theories, also put those in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Peace.